Oh, it says live on my side.
We are being live streamed. We are live. Okay. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are. Super, super excited to be here. I'm really, really excited to bring you this awesome guest. Some of you may know her. This is Jessica Smith dos Santos. And she just finished writing her book. So she is in a place I know where a lot of us want to be, present company included. This has been a long labor of love for her, putting this book together. She's now in the process of editing and publishing and getting her book out there. And the name of her book is Shit They Don't Teach You in Nursing School, which I love the book. I love the cover. I love the message. And we're just going to jump right into it. I would love to kind of hear from you, Jessica. Tell us about your book. Tell us what this was like.
Oh my goodness. Well, first and foremost, I'm a retired registered nurse turned full-time coach. And what I know that I know that I know is that one of my favorite things to do is help people be the author of their own story. And I feel like so many times the things that prevent us from being a powerful author of our own story is because we get stuck in guilt and shame and judgment and lies about who we are and feeling unworthy. Full transparency, the journey from becoming nurse to coach to like almost publishing my story took me embracing my shame, my guilt, the lies that I was unworthy, and coming to a place of like, no, I was given a custom curriculum that has set me up to be who I am today, to serve who I was put here to serve. And when you can reach that place with your story, that's what allows you to be able to share it from a place that just is in so much service of others. And so I just want to let you know from a very transparent place, this book started off as 100 pages in a Google Doc that literally, if I had put that on print, it would have like lit on fire. It was so poisonous.
Yes.
It would have like started steaming and like melting into this like poisonous puddle.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many nuggets in there. Okay. I love, first of all, what you said about shame and guilt and how that's a barrier for so many people to write. And I know that's across the board. Anyone who's ever attempted to write personal writing or write a memoir has to wade through that guilt and that shame and those yucky feelings of like, I mean, there's so much like, who am I going to offend? And who am I to write my story? Do I even deserve to write my story? What are people going to think when they hear these stories? All of those things. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because that's such a central theme that comes up for anyone that ever tries to write anything personal. I also love the little piece that you said that like your life was basically you were handed a custom curriculum to teach other people and to be able to, so it's kind of like those are the steps, like you get through the shame and then you got yourself to a place where you love you're so in love with your story and you get to use it as a place to inspire other people, to inspire nurses, to inspire, people who want to write, things like that. And so I just love everything you shared. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Yeah, I'm so curious. Okay, so this is what I was thinking about before I spoke with you. I was like, what was the hardest? And I know I'm sure there was a lot of hard parts. Personally, I know a lot of us have a love-hate relationship with writing. It's like we love the process, we hate the process. We love the finished product, we hate the finished product. Like, we want to do it, we don't want to do it. It's like it's such a love-hate relationship. And I think almost every writer deals with that. And so, yeah, what was the hardest part of this process for you? What was the part you hated the most?
There were a couple of very specific stories that were like so hard for me to write because I had not reached that place of how they were for me, right? Like I was still stuck and like this happened to me. It was atrocious. Like I am a very justified victim of this story. And I just can't believe that anybody would have to go through this, like much less me. And being able to put words to those stories was incredibly painful, because it did trigger all of those feelings, those insecurities, those lies about my worth, the seeking approval, right? Because here's another part that I've come to understand is that I do not need anybody's permission, validation, or approval to have had the story that I have had.
Wow.
And it took me some time to really believe that within myself, because I was afraid that if I shared that, like, whose approval would I lose? Who would stop validating me? Right? Like, who would disapprove of me? Who would no longer give me permission to shine if I shared these things of myself because of my perception about them? And it absolutely took me hiring a therapeutic writing coach to work me through the other side. So, because every story has two sides, and every story in our lives is as much for us as it is against us. And it's finding that perfect mold of like how it has guided us to where we are that really allows us that space. So I absolutely, like, it was either quit the book or ask for help. And y'all know nurses, we are the helpers. We don't ask for help because we got this, right? Like, the whole world is on our shoulders and we got this with our little cape flapping, right? So it took a little, like, setting the ego aside and saying, like, dear hurt, I'm really truly ready to, like, see you, to feel you, to invite you to the table, and to learn from you, to learn how it is that you have served me to be the woman that I am today, so that I can use you in the way that you were intended for me to use. Not, you didn't intend to keep me trapped. You intend to serve me. And that was my biggest, most difficult job that I resisted the hardest.
Asking, I love that, the asking for help. And that is so, I mean, it's not unique to nurses, but it's kind of unique to nurses. Like, we have like a special flavor of it that we really struggle to ask for help. And I just love that you mentioned that, because to think that we should be able to write a book on our own, it's just not realistic. Like, why would we be able to do that? And I tell people this all the time, like, even this is something that advice that I give very often to people that want to write a memoir, that want to write a book. I say, start small. Writing a book is the marathon, the triathlon of writing. You don't have to start there. Write a 2,000 word essay, write a Facebook post, go up, be a guest on a podcast, start like bite size, start small, and just start to slowly tell your story. So that's just so powerful, that the asking for help and how that helped you get to your end goal. It's super powerful. Super powerful. I love it. Yeah. And I was thinking, okay, so the next thing I wanted to ask you was, so this is something I talk about often with memoir and biography. So a lot of people, a question that I get a lot is like, what's the difference between a memoir and a biography? And a biography is basically like an account of your life. It's kind of like, usually it's in chronological order. It's like talking about your life kind of from beginning to end. And the type of person that would write a biography would be like Leonardo DiCaprio or Michael Jordan. Like, we want to know, who was your kindergarten teacher? Like, what town did you grow up in? How much did you weigh when you were born? So if you're famous, a biography makes sense. But for most people, we're not famous. No one really cares about all these details. We are looking to write a different kind of book, which is a memoir. A memoir is a little bit different. A memoir is a book that is written through a certain lens, or you kind of have a certain container. There are certain themes, and a memoir could be about 1 week of your life. A memoir could be about a certain relationship in your life. A memoir could be, so I'm curious for you with your book. I'm sure you had to kind of figure out, like, what were the themes in your book? What was kind of like, one of my writing teachers calls it like the sky writing, like the bigger themes, the container, the lens through which you tell your story. So what was the kind of the container for your story? What were kind of some of those bigger themes that you touch on in the story?
So the very first theme is it, like, basically talking to the girl that I used to be, right? Like, that girl who felt like a victim, who felt like she wanted so badly to be seen and to be heard and to tell her story, but was afraid, right? Like, this book is for the person who says, I'm done being a prisoner of my story, and I am ready to take that next baby step towards empowering myself to love my story wholly, right? So that's kind of the first theme, is like the big call to action is, don't just pick this book up and read it. Like, pick this book up and do something for yourself, because information is just information without action. And information without action, in my opinion, can create fantasies, which then creates depression, right? Because you have all this information and all these great ideas, But if you never take action, it can really breed that sense of like, I'm doing nothing with my life. So the first theme is take action. The second theme is, as nurses, we do hard shit that we were never told about in nursing school. Like, there's a whole list. I mean, it could be like 5 books, right? I think I really had to figure out which stories specifically. And I think that the biggest thing that we are not told in nursing school is how to properly process our emotions. We don't know how freaking angry we're going to get in this career. We don't know the depth of sadness until we've witnessed a child die from abuse, right? Like, we don't know the depth of fear until we've given a patient a wrong medication that literally might kill them. Like, we're not taught, like, we're taught about the mistakes and how to avoid them, but we're not taught about the emotions that come with them. And then we're also taught to numb, to shop, to be promiscuous, to drink alcohol, to eat food, right? Like, we're taught all of those ineffective coping habits. And I tell a very personal story of my friend Lauren. She is a fellow nurse, and I have permission, like, she's the only story in the book that's like full, like, my accounting, as true to story as I could get it, with her family's permission. But I mentored her for 16 weeks. She was a new grad. She was an ER nurse. And at about a year into her career, she committed suicide. And I truly believe that it's because she was never empowered with skills to understand her emotions. So I think the thing that nursing school really forgets to tell us is that we matter. Like, more than anybody we care for, we matter the most. And our emotions matter. And knowing how to leverage those emotions for us rather than harming ourselves is so incredibly important. And so, like, really, that's the other, like, big theme is like, here's the story, here's the emotion, here's the gift of the emotion, and here is a tool to support you in going from feeling like a victim to feeling empowered in your own story.
Oh my God, so powerful, so powerful. Yes, and I mean, I've heard of nurses in my hospital committing suicide. Like, when that happens, it's like a knife in your heart. And exactly what you're saying, it's because we are not taught to process our emotions. That's not taught to us in nursing school. It just isn't. And it's just, it reminds me of like your skywriting, your theme, like about processing. It reminds me of like the archetype of like the wounded healer. And I think that's what we as nurses and as nurse coaches, a lot of us are facing this idea that, we're healers. We went into this to heal, but very often people who go into the healing arts do that because there's some core wound that they're trying to heal. And it's, once you realize that, everything just clicks. It's like you look around and you just see how much our profession is hurting. I mean, we hear about burnout all the time. It's almost like it doesn't even mean anything anymore, but it's like, our profession is hurting, like it's hurting. And it's just, I'm so excited about your book because it's just such an empowering message. It's such an empowering message. Like, we don't have to lay back and be victims. We don't have to just say like, well, it sucks. And that's part of the process. Like, part of the continuum is to be in that angry phase, to throw things at the wall and to be like, I freaking, like, why is it like this? But we have to come through that to the action stage, the empowerment stage, to empowering others and to raise the collective vibration of our profession so that we can help heal the world. Because again, why did we go into nursing? Because we want to heal. We want to heal because most of us have some core wound that we wanted to heal. And the only way to, if we're stuffing down our emotions and if we're covering up that wound with like, alcohol and numbing agents and shopping and all these things and just not feeling those emotions, how can we heal the people that we went into this profession to heal and to serve and to help? And so I'm like so excited about your book. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. I cannot wait to read it. I'm just like so proud of you that you went through this process, that you waded through those like ugly, dark, murky places to bring us this light, to bring us this hopeful message of what's possible for our profession and what's possible for the future. So just thank you. Thank you for writing your book. I'm super inspired. Yeah.
You're welcome. And to your point, that was why the first 100 pages of my whole entire book got deleted, because it was that just poisonous, like, I'm so fucking pissed, like, poor me, like, it was 100 pages of just absolute spewing, which is necessary, right? That was my start. I was like, wow, I just spewed 100 pages. Like, I had so much in there that 100 pages was just like,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where you have to start. And I tell people this all the time.
Mm.
That's why I'm such an advocate of the morning
Yeah.
pages. Why I'm such an advocate of journaling. And I tell people that comes before the book. That comes first, because
That's right.
you don't want to write a book that's just angry and bitter. And like, no one really wants to hear that. Like, let's be honest. But there's a place for that. There's a place to put that. And that's your journaling, your morning pages. That's your pre-writing. That's getting yourself ready to create a coherent story that's empowering and has a message and has a theme. And it's so, oh yeah, I can literally like envision with like the steam coming out of it. It's a great analogy. I love it. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Jessica. So I'm so curious. I know that you no longer hold an RN title. You now call yourself a retired RN. What was behind that decision to put down that title?
So this is going to be a little bold, and it might step on some toes. And if it does, maybe I would say good, because it's going to force us to look at a broken system. One of the things that sort of had me looking at what else I could do was that I stopped feeling good about helping people. And after a 17-year career in nursing, I was like, I'm trying to serve, to empower people in a system that was only ever designed to react to disease. And I truly believe that the medical system would be incredible if our communities would empower themselves in their own health. But our medical system is not effective because people are so disempowered in their own physical, mental, financial, relational health that they're now coming to the medical system for answers, and it was never designed for that. And there is just no place in the work that I'm doing that I need that RN behind my name. Because it's not something that's necessary in the world that I am in now. And I went through this debate of like, oh, I'm good. I have like a year and a half to decide if I'm going to keep the RN. And like the moment came, and I remember calling my coach like in tears. I was like, I have invested 17 years, my heart, my soul, time with my children into this career. And I'm thinking about giving it back. And I'm not sure, like that feels scary. And she's like, okay, what are the benefits of keeping it? And I was like, pride, investment, time lost. I feel like I'm obligated to keep it because of all that I sacrificed for it. And I realized through that conversation that I was wanting to keep it for all the wrong reasons. And it was just a tie. It's like that abusive relationship, right? Like as messed up as it is, there's a sense of comfort in it. And I was like, what I was meant to do next is not comfortable. And it does not require me to sacrifice all of those things that I have sacrificed. And the real answer was, if you got the call to go back to nursing and they were going to pay you $1 million for the next 5 years of your life to give back to that career, would you put your scrubs on? And I was like, nope, I wouldn't, because that's 5 years of lives that I would not be able to impact in the ways that I know that I was supposed to. And so once a nurse, always a nurse, yes, but an active RN, I haven't been active in 4 years.
Wow. 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 That is like so powerful and so courageous. I think like you really taking stock of your beliefs and your values and thinking like, I want to be aligned and this is just not aligned anymore, and being able to let it go. Like, I'm blown away, girl, because I'm pretty attached. I'm going to be like transparent. Like, I'm really attached to my RN title. Like, I've been working as a coach, exclusively as a coach, for almost a year. And I'm still like question myself, am I a real nurse? And I love saying that I'm a nurse. I love telling people that I'm a nurse. But it's probably from a place of pride or security or comfort, or just like this relationship with this profession that has given me so much, but it has also taken so much. And I just applaud you for just being so honest with yourself and really being able to take stock of like, is this a title I want to put after my name? And again, once a nurse, always a nurse. And like, you know, no one can take that away from you. That's the truth. And no one can deny that you have the heart of a nurse, the true heart of a nurse, like the nursing that Florence Nightingale, I believe, espoused. Like, that's real nursing. Yes. And I think nursing, we can get into a whole conversation about this, but nursing, the medical model, we kind of lost our way just a little bit. And yeah, there are elements of it where it's like, do I want to still identify with this? Am I still aligned with this profession? And I just think it's so courageous of you that you were able to just kind of like, just be really honest and do what you had to do. So that's just such a cool piece of your story.
Yeah. I do say that like laying that license down doesn't negate 17 years of experience, right? It doesn't negate all of the training. It doesn't negate any of that. Like, again, I don't need anybody's permission, validation, or approval to have had the story that I've had. And part of that story is, like a million letters behind my name.
Right. We love those letters.
Right. But it doesn't negate any of that. And I often say, like, I feel like I am more of a nurse now than I was then. Right. Because I feel like I'm truly empowering people in their own health by taking care of the basics, which is like what Florence stood for, right? Like, clean your room, eat good food, drink good water, go get some sunshine, get some fresh air, right?
Yeah.
And it did take courage, and it's not for everybody, right? I'm not here to say it's the one and only path, but I can say that being fully aligned for the right reasons will set you free.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is part of like the new paradigm, like the new, whatever's coming next looks different. And when Florence Nightingale, I mean, she's like a hero of mine. I read her books. Like I love that woman. And she is the mother of modern nursing. And when you really study her teachings and you look at what she believed, nursing by definition is holistic. There's no such thing as holistic nursing, because nursing is holistic. Exactly what you're saying. She was so revolutionary. She was one of the people that, really moved germ theory forward. She talked about clean air, clean water, clean, washing your hands before taking. These were all things that she moved forward. And nursing by definition is holistic. And unfortunately, in the last few decades, the nursing model has been swallowed up by the medical model. And the medical model is not holistic. The medical model is problem focused. It's disease focused. It's all about disease. And nursing, again, has kind of lost its way. And I'm so glad that there are people like you and the nurse coaching community and people who are wading into these uncharted waters of, like really bringing nursing back to its roots, which is holistic, which does look at the whole person, which makes it okay to pray with a patient or to ask a patient about their spiritual needs, their emotional needs, bringing the family into the picture. These are all what nurses are meant to do at our core. That is what our profession stands for. And so I think exactly what you're saying. You're probably more a nurse now than you've ever been. And I love your story so much. And yeah. So one last question for you before we hop off. I want to ask you, is there a story from your book that you want to share with us?
Oh, girl. There's so many of them. There is one specifically that's pretty fun. Do we have like 6-ish minutes? I could just read it for you.
Yeah, go for it.
What's fun about this one specifically is that when I read it in my beta reader groups, it's like, it's so real. Like, people don't realize, like, people think like, oh, nurses, like, they deal with poop, right? Like, they deal with pee, they deal with those kind of things. But what they don't realize is the things that people do with their poop that we have to deal with. Like, it can be so shocking. And so I have a section in the beginning of my book that talks about the 3 phases of initiation. And the first phase is titled shit. So I'm just going to read it to you.
So good.
I will never forget the elderly man that began my initiation. He was a cranky old man and had a reputation for being meaner than a junkyard dog. He had not had one single visitor, and we were warned that he liked to throw things at the staff. He was having chest pain, and he was sent to the hospital from his group home by ambulance several days prior. He was still in the hospital because the group home was refusing to take him back. Apparently, his behavior was too abusive for their facility. The social worker was trying to find a new place for him to be discharged to, but until then, he was ours. Being the naive optimist I was, my heart still hurt a little hearing his story. What a sad life he must live. I decided then and there that I was going to try to brighten his day and give him a reason to smile. I walked into his room, pushing the vitals machine with one hand and balancing his breakfast tray with the other. I smiled my best smile and offered a cheery, "Good morning. I brought you some breakfast." He looked at me and growled like an angry caged animal. I continued cautiously towards him, my head cocked to the side as his appearance drew my attention. His teeth were yellow and dirty. His face was leathered and evil. His eyes were filled with contempt. The air felt heavy and thick, and the shift in the atmosphere made me stop dead in my tracks. I had never experienced this kind of hatred before, ever. As my eyes took him in, I noticed that he was scrawny. His arms were bony, his dry and weathered skin hung from his skeleton. His fingers were long and thin with thick yellowed nails that looked more like claws. He looked feral and inhospitable. I started to feel like the night shift staff had withheld some details in their description of him at change of shift report. I immediately felt like an idiot, forever thinking that I had a chance to make his day. As a matter of fact, I understood right away that this man lived a miserable existence. "Bring me my fucking breakfast," he snarled. I rocked back on my heels, my eyes wide, feeling like I had just been slapped. I had heard plenty of language in my life, but no one had ever spoken to me that way directly. I was simultaneously shocked and insulted. Part of me wanted to tell him off, and the other part of me wanted to tuck tail and run away as fast as I could. I had no words. My feet were frozen to the floor as if trapped in concrete. We stayed there, eyes locked in a stare down, as if we were in a standoff, both with hands poised above the grips of loaded guns, one waiting for the other to make a move so we could end this. Finally, the air trapped in my chest exhaled, and my feet began to move slowly towards him. Without breaking eye contact, I set the breakfast tray on his bedside table and I reached for the blood pressure cuff. "Don't even think you're going to touch me with that, sweetie," he snapped. "Yes, sir," I replied, my brows furrowed with confusion as I exhaled further. He had verbally slapped me and then called me sweetie. I was confused. I began slowly backing out of the room. Something was very wrong with this man. I remembered the comment from the night shift staff that he liked to throw things, and I was not about to turn my back on him. Out in the hall, I let the nurse know that he had refused to have his vital signs taken. My body felt jittery, like I had drank too much coffee. He had gotten in my head hard and fast, and I was still trying to process what I had just witnessed. When it came time to collect the empty breakfast trays, I glanced at the door of his room and I hesitated. Was this the day I was going to get a fork thrown at me? I took a deep breath and I reminded myself that I had been raised on a ranch. I was a sturdy farm girl. I had been kicked by horses, bitten by dogs, attacked by geese, and scratched by cats. I was plenty tough, and I was not about to let this feral old bag of bones intimidate me. I took a deep breath, I squared my shoulders, and I went back into the room with some authority in my step. To my surprise, there was no fork flying through the air. No, it was much worse. He was sarcastically sneering, and I detected a small sparkle of glee in his eye. Again, I was confused by this man. And then it hit me like a wave crashing its way onto the shore. The putrid smell of sulfur, rotten eggs, skunk, decaying produce, and decomposed meat. My face wrinkled in disgust. My shoulders sagged in defeat as my eyes landed on the source of the smell. In an instant, the meaning of his face became clear. He had removed the plastic cover off of his breakfast tray, shit in it, and set it on his bedside table next to his half-eaten breakfast. His sneer was in anticipation of my reaction. What the hell is wrong with him, I thought. "I had to shit and I wanted to leave you a little present, sweetie." His words were condescending and delighted. What an oops. My eyes narrowed and I glared at him. My spine stiffened. My happy, optimistic heart turned to stone in an instant. I was done playing nice. Quite frankly, I was pissed. I thought to myself, okay, you want to play? Game on, old man. I put on some gloves, calmly walked over to his table, and removed everything except the plastic plate cover with his morning turd sitting in it. I moved the tray table just out of his reach, but still well within sniffing distance. With one last glare and a sarcastic smile of my own, I turned on my heels and I started walking out of the room. When he realized that I did not intend to take his prize with me, he began shouting, "Hey, aren't you going to get that shit out of here?" I paused at the door, only half glancing at him over my shoulder, and said, "Nope." I walked quickly out the door and out of sight, not giving him the dignity of an opportunity to respond. I had decided that he could enjoy his disgusting brown steaming present until I was done collecting all the rest of the breakfast trays. Now I realized that I couldn't leave it in there all day, and I would eventually have to go back and face the music. But for now, I was feeling pretty proud of myself. The war was not over, but I had won that battle. Pharaoh bag of bones, 0. Me, 1. I enjoyed a smug little smile as I heard him continue to holler unintelligibly down the hall. Phase 1 of initiation complete. Ooh, ooh.
So
What I
good.
really love about that story is that, number one, like, people just don't know what people do with their own body stuff. Like, you don't expect that as a nurse. Like, they can't prepare you for that, right? And like
Yes.
all of those emotions. But also, I feel like sometimes nurses feel disempowered and they don't know that they don't have to be treated that way. Like, regardless of the setting, like, you are allowed to have boundaries as to how people talk to you.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like a multifaceted message, but
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Oh my God. What an awesome note to end on. That story, it's like funny, it's sad,
it's
it's
gross.
everything. It literally represents nursing. It's got shit in it. So it's perfect. It's perfect. Oh my God. I loved it. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing that story with us, for sharing your wisdom with us. I wish you the best of luck with this book. Really excited to hear how everything unfolds with the editing, the publishing process. I'm definitely going to be watching closely. And yeah, I mean, you're in the Facebook group, so you can always post in the group when the book is live, so everyone knows where to find you, everyone knows where to find the book. Yeah, and thanks again. I really appreciate you, and thank you everyone so much for watching. This was awesome.
Absolutely my pleasure. And I just want to give you some encouragement, like, embrace your story, because when you can transcend the things that you think happened to you, then you can transform the rest of your life. And you are worth
Yes.
it, my friend. You are
Preach.
so worth it.
Preach. Thank you for that message. All right, take care, everybody. Catch you later.